What's goody? Yo, that felt so good to say. What's good, my people? Yo, it's been a minute since I've been here, man, and I'm not even gonna lie. I miss doing this. I missed presenting to all three of y'all. Yo, what's up? What's up? How you guys doing, man? I hope y'all been good, man. I hope y'all been staying strong. I hope y'all been praying. I hope y'all been fasting. I hope y'all been, being just being grateful, man. Just letting the Most High, the Most Holy, know how grateful you are for everything that you have, man. For everything that you have, because believe me, all that you have could be taken in a day, in a snap of a finger, just like that, you know. But in your weakest times, you shall stay strong. You need to stay strong and prove to him that you are a soldier. You know what I mean? Alright, so today I want to bring to you a little research and a little work into baptism. As you've already seen, this video is called the Pagan Chronicles, Regeneration by Baptism. Now, I'm sure all of you guys all have, either seen or heard or watched or attended or even been baptized, whether as an infant or as an adult. I'm sure you guys are already familiar with baptism. And that's what I wanted to bring to you today. Just a little forenote. This isn't a video, just downplaying baptism and saying, no, baptism is the devil, do not do it. No, I'm just trying to operate from a spirit of truth. I'm just trying to bring several perspectives which I've discovered as I went down this rabbit hole in terms of the origins of baptism and some of the truths behind it. Now, what you want to conclude with this information which I'll bring to you today, that's up to you. Okay, so according to the Roman system, baptism is absolutely required to be a child of God. It is, I guess, a signification or symbolism as a rebirth, to be reborn in Christianity or in the word of the Lord, or to be reborn as a child and a follower of, open quote, close quote, Jesus Christ, right? So it says here that John the Baptist, who is considered a forerunner to Christianity, used baptism as a central sacrament of his Messianic movement. Christians consider Jesus to have instituted the sacrament of baptism. The earliest Christian baptisms seem to have been done by either immersion or by pouring water on the head 3 times. By the 3rd and 4th centuries, baptism involved catechetical instruction as well as chrismation, exorcisms, laying on of hands, and recitation of the creed. In the West, effusion became the normal mode of baptism between the 12th and the 14th centuries, though immersion was still practiced into the 16th. In the 16th century, Martin Luther retained baptism as a sacrament, but Swiss reformer Huldrych Zwingli considered baptism and the Lord's Supper to be symbolic. Anabaptists denied the validity of infant baptism, which was normal practice when their movement started and practiced believers' baptism indeed. Several groups related to Anabaptism, notably the Baptists and Dunkards, soon practiced baptism by immersion as following the biblical example. Alright, so I just wanted to establish this common understanding that baptism is considered, reconciliation with God. But as I was reading, as I read more and as I read the origins of baptism, I did discover that the doctrine of baptism is actually found in other heathen religions or pagan religions, so to say. Specifically, namely Babylonian, Greek, Chaldean, even Hindu, funny enough, even Native American, which was pretty interesting. Native American, Mexican specifically, In the Norse, there are accounts and practices of baptism, or not necessarily considered baptism, but a ritual where a believer of the religion or a member of the religion comes in contact with water, and on the other side of that contact, or on the other side of that act or that practice, he is considered renewed or reborn. So the practice of baptism predates the Christian faith. It was employed in Babylonia and in ancient Egypt, where the cold waters of the Nile were thought to increase strength and to bestow immortality. The Greeks also believed that baptism could bring regeneration or procure immorality for the initiate. The Jewish sect at Qumran practiced baptism for initiation into the community. It was required that Gentile converts to Judaism be circumcised and 7 days later be baptized by immersion before witnesses. I came to find that in Hinduism, the Brahmin believed that you must be twice born in order to find eternal happiness. And in honor of their god, Vishnu, who is Noah, and I did a video about this a while ago. Vishnu, who is considered Noah, is the twice born man of the water. And that's what most of these acts, most of these practices, most of these baptismal religions sort of stem from. They originate from the story of Noah and the ark. So as you guys already know, the Most High opened the valves. He flooded the earth so that everything would be wiped clean and restarted. And Noah, being the soul anointed to survive this this catastrophic event, he went into the water and he came out into the new world, where him and his family, I guess, were the new primordial beings, which all people would stem from. And so in that act right there, him being placed in the water in the ark and surviving it and being the only one born into a new world, they believe that was the meaning. They believe that was the meaning of being reborn. They believe that he was the first to be reborn and to be cleansed and to be anointed and chosen to be reborn into a new world. So that's where that origin, that belief of rebirth comes from, within baptism. And similarly, the Chaldean mysteries require the person to be reborn or baptized to devote themselves in blind obedience. Native American tribes practiced baptism way before even the first Roman Catholic missionaries landed on their shores. Babylonians, followers of Wudan or Wu-Tang or Odin, practiced baptism as well. Egyptians practiced baptism as well, and I'll bring some of these stories to light. Alright, so baptism, whether by immersion or sprinkling, is a very old religious ritual of many religions. It has never been exclusively Christian ritual. Hindus have been practicing baptism for 4,000 years. As a part of their religious purification rites, they are immersed in a river or sprinkled with water. Babylonian, Egyptian, and Roman religions also practice ritual purification ceremonies, as is proved by both archaeology and ancient literature. Apuleius, a Roman writer who lived in the 2nd century, wrote of the ancient initiation that was preceded by a normal bath and then a ceremonial sprinkling by the priest of Isis. He said that the ritual of sprinkling and cleansing with water in ancient times was a kind of voluntary death and salvation through divine grace. More importantly, Judaism had a number of cleansing and purification rites, including baptism, called tevilah in Hebrew. Water played an important role in their ceremonies and regulations, including immersion in water and sprinkling with water, which also could be found in the scriptures, in the books of Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomies. John's baptism was nothing new to the Pharisees or to the Jews. They were very familiar with what we call baptism. In their religion, full body immersion, or tevilah, had to be done in the running water of a river called living water, or in a mikvah, baptismal pool of rainwater in a temple. It was not a bath for washing in. It was seen as a symbolic immersion for spiritual cleansing, conversion, and renewal. All Gentiles who wanted to become Jews had to go through Tevilah baptism. To this day, converts to Judaism are still required to be baptized in a mikvah. I want to go on a little tangent here about spiritual cleansing. This is something that I'm, been trying to understand better. And I believe I have gained just a little bit more understanding, in the past few months. So the same way that us people, the same way that we get dirty after a long day, or the same way that we would get dirty if we played in mud, or if we played in the dirt, the spirit gets dirty too. But the spirit gets dirty through other ways, such as if you curse, it could be through the music that you listen to. It could be, immoral behavior, porn, masturbation, over excessive use of drugs and alcohol, theft, stealing, liking affinity to fighting people, like physical violence, or just lying and cheating and stealing and gossiping behind people's backs, or sin, eating pork, adultery, sleeping with another person's woman, stuff like that brings about spiritual uncleanliness. And as people, or as believers of the Most High, it's something we got to work on, in order to better ourselves, or to make ourselves closer to the Most High. We got to find cleanliness, or spiritual hygiene. And some of the ways that you can do this, I made a video, is fasting. It could be fasting, prayer, diet, the foods that you eat. Apparently also the clothes that you wear, like fabrics, like linen, are really have positive effects on your spirit. I think this might be a theory, but gemstones as well, the same way Israelites or the Levites wore gemstones could also have positive effects on the spirit or on the soul. And it's because that every single thing in this world has a vibrational frequency, of a signature frequency, like a certain energy that it emits, and gemstones like gold, jasper, rubies, diamonds, sapphires, they all emit certain frequencies and energies. Even crystals, they emit these energies that can have positive effects on your body, or on your spirit, or on your mind, or whatever have you. But I digress. All right, another baptismal ritual practice in the northern European parts. So, and this is a naming ritual for a certain tribe of people within the Norse area. So the gift of a name to a newborn also gives it a status as a human being and as a member of the family. Ooh, this is pagan. I did not know that. In the sagas, the naming was done in a ceremony in which the father took the child, sprinkled water on it, and named it. This was called, of course, my pronunciation is going to be awful, Vatni, which simply means sprinkling of water. While Vatni might resemble Christian baptism, a different word was always used for baptism, which was skern, which literally means purification. But it's the same concept, right? Stepping into the water in hopes of spiritual purification. And this suggests that the heathen ritual was seen as distinct from the Christian one. So you see, that's just a small example of different parts of how different parts of the world practice what we know as baptism. And of course, it wouldn't be a heathen expo without historical article about Egypt. So, For most religions, water baptism was a form of ritual washing and purification before a particular ceremony, sacrifice, or religious service. It was reviewed as a way to cleanse oneself, both physically and spiritually, before meeting with that religion's deity. In some religious circles, baptism was used as a rite of healing and exorcism. It was thought that if the water was blessed in a particular way by a priest, it had healing powers which could wash away the sickness or evil spirit. It was also customary in some religions to baptize. It was customary in some regions to baptize or wash those who had died, so that any residual uncleanliness could be removed from the body, and the spirit of the person could break free of the dead body and be released into the realm of the gods, or into the renewal of life and reincarnation. Egyptian baptism. Interestingly, the Egyptians believed that it was the god Osiris himself who chose whom to baptize, and he chose them by drowning or immersing them in the Nile River. If a person fell into a river and drowned, or was pulled into the river by a crocodile, it was believed that Osiris had specifically chosen that person for some special role in the afterlife, and the person's body was treated as a most holy and sacred relic. This idea fits perfectly with the definition of baptism as an immersion that causes the person to become completely identified with what they were baptized into. The person who drowns or immersed in the river become identified and connected with the river, and thus also with Osiris, the god of the river. Jewish people, however, did not believe that it was possible to become one with God, and would have considered such an idea idolatrous. In Jewish theology, God is wholly other. So how do they understand the baptism which they practiced? So this just extends my point further, how baptism has always existed, and Babylon being one of the oldest civilizations on this earth just shows that baptism does actually predate Christianity. Although, it found its way into Christianity. As you see in the scriptures, Yahushua was also baptized, which was an act or a practice or a ritual that the Pharisees did not, that the Pharisees had seen before. So, last but not least, I want to look at baptism from a Romish or a Roman perspective. So, Rome does keep up with the remembrance of the fire god passing through the waters through their baptismal ritual. So when it comes to Rome brought a lot of their pagan beliefs and their pagan rituals and their pagan origin stories and their pagan god mythos into Roman Catholicism. So that includes, the Roman god of fire was Vulcan, or in Greek he was Hephaestus, who was married to Aphrodite or Venus, right? So I want you guys to remember that. And also remember that, Venus or Aphrodite is just another amalgamation for Isis or Juno or, the Queen of Heaven, who is, mentioned time and again in scriptures. Alright, so in the heathen world, and this was a long time ago, so when a person would come into a temple in hopes of making a sacrifice, more specifically the Greek temple, they would have to be purified by water, right? And we stated that already. And to this end, at the entrance of the temples, there was commonly placed a vessel full of holy water, in quotes. So how did this water get its holiness? This water was consecrated. In other words, it was anointed or bestowed or given unique sacrament by putting a burning torch taken from the altar and putting that torch into the water. And what that burning torch was a symbol of the fire god of Hephaestus or Vulcan, the god of fire. In other words, Lucifer, the light bearer, the torch bearer, and that same torch was the torch that they used to consecrate that water. So what they would do, they would take that torch, which represented Lucifer, and they dip it into the water. Now, this very same method is used in the Romish church for consecrating the water for baptism. This very same method is used in the Romish church for consecrating the water for baptism. So this torch is used to give the water power and efficacy to sanctify souls. And from there on, the water is considered to be regenerating water, and that it has the ability or the power to purify somebody, before they're made sacrifice. And yeah, man, that's pretty much what I wanted to bring to you guys today. Especially that last part about how the Roman baptismal ceremony or the baptismal ritual literally resembles pagan fire worship ritual, And like I said at the beginning of this video, this isn't to, I'm not telling you to hate your church or to hate your pastor for baptism, for baptizing somebody or advocating baptism. We just got to continue to do our research, sit down and have a conversation about these things in the spirit of truth and just, separate the meat from the bones, Yahushua did it in the scriptures, so I'm sure it's not necessarily an evil or a pagan or a wicked thing to do. However, there were pagans and heathens that did practice it. And I just wanted to bring this to you guys just to, expand your minds and to keep you guys observant of the world that we live in, and this is one of the reasons why I started this series, the Paganism Chronicles. There are a lot of paganism acts right before us, right in front of us that, we would never believe or we have no idea about. Not because we're necessarily pagans ourselves or we're devil worshippers, but because we just lack knowledge, man. It's like the Most High said, my people will fall for a lack of knowledge. My people will perish for a lack of knowledge, And man, as I'm growing older, I'm starting to realize that knowledge is a superpower, Knowledge is wakefulness. Knowledge is electricity, Knowledge is a force, Knowledge is a superpower, bro. Like when you know something that the next person doesn't, or when you know something, it to me it feels like it taps you into something, into a power deep inside of you, that just makes you like unlosable, if that makes sense, undefeatable, like when you have knowledge, you take no L's, and I remember reading this, I think it was in the book of Psalms or the book of Proverbs. It must have been the book of Proverbs. It said something about a town or a city, a walled city was surrounded by an army. And the army and the city had it had no one willing to fight. But there was one man who was wise and knowledgeable, and that one man alone took down a whole army just off of knowledge alone, And who was the God of knowledge? Who was the God of truth? Who was the God of truth and understanding? But the Most High, I know devil worshippers, they attain knowledge through unspeakable ways, but the God of truth and understanding is the Most High, the Most Holy, So that being said, please keep praying to Him and asking Him for knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, and counsel, and guidance, and advice. And He will do just that to make your life that much more fulfilling and that much more enriching. As long as you use that knowledge for good, though. Don't go and take that knowledge and then go around and start doing something mal, or evil or wicked with it. All right, man. I'll see you guys later. Thank you for watching another video. And like I said, continue praying. I'm out. Thanks.